I value your time as a viewer, so if you just want to quickly copy the build and hop back into the game, I made this infographic for you. The download link can be found in the pinned comment. All I'm asking is to kindly leave a like if you found it helpful, and maybe share the video to your friends. Yuki's gameplay is centered around activating the inspiration effects of her cards to trigger Freezing Blade as much as possible. To activate the inspiration effects of a card, the card must be drawn through an ability or through the passive effect of an equipment. For example, if Yuki uses Prepare to Subdue to draw one of her attack cards, this attack card will activate its inspiration effect. Granted, it is a card with an inspiration effect. If you have Fragment of the Empty Void and use its effect to draw Yuki's cards, it will activate the inspiration effect of the drawn cards. If an ally uses their draw ability and manages to get one of Yuki's cards, then the inspiration effect of that card will activate. This makes it crucial for Yuki to be teamed up with other combatants that have the ability to manipulate your deck in one or different ways. Freezing Blade is an upgrade card, where two of its best epiphanies would allow Yuki to do a follow-up attack after using any of her cards with an activated inspiration effect. One focuses on single target damage, while the other further improves Yuki's AoE capabilities. Unlike other combatants, Yuki can have different strong builds, but if we were to look for her best build, then we simply need to look at the best epiphany upgrade of Prepare to Subdue. This specific epiphany for Prepare to Subdue makes this card arguably the strongest card in Yuki's deck. Unlike every other epiphany option, this is the only one with an inspiration effect, which means that it will trigger Freezing Blade for 0 cost. On top of that, it will draw 2 of Yuki's attack cards, with the first drawn card getting a 20% multiplicative damage increase. It also means that if Yuki were to draw both attack cards with inspiration effect, she could potentially trigger Freezing Blade 2 more times. That is a total of 3 Freezing Blade procs in just 1 card. Next, we need to look for Yuki's best attack card. This is where a lot of opinions can differ, but that's fine. We can just use a process of elimination. It honestly boils down to Flash Slash versus Iceberg Cleave. After all, Flash Slash has this epiphany that reduces its cost by 2 when the inspiration effect is triggered. Iceberg Cleave, on the other hand, just deals way too much damage for a card that only uses 1 AP. We can remove Flash Slash from the options, and the reason is very simple. Flash Slash can get a fake epiphany that provides 3 morale for 1 turn. I call it a fake epiphany since it is not part of the 5 default epiphany options. Using Iceberg Cleave as an example, you can easily get an extra 180% modifier from 3 morale due to Iceberg Cleave's multi-hit and a Freezing Blade proc. Now imagine if you could chain longer combos. This leaves us with Iceberg Cleave as undeniably Yuki's best attack card. This is crucial information because there is one problem with Prepare to Subdue. It is the fact that it can only draw Yuki's attack cards instead of moving them to your hand. Drawing cards means you can only draw from the draw pile and discard pile. When a card is used, it will go into the graveyard first. When your turn ends, cards that are in the graveyard will be put into the discard pile. What this ultimately means is that if you manage to use all of Yuki's attack cards on the same turn and have Prepare to Subdue left on your hand, using it won't allow you to draw any cards. After all, your attack cards are all in the graveyard. You will need to wait for the next turn, so the attack cards are moved into the discard pile, which then allows Prepare to Subdue to draw them. By knowing this, it is important to balance the amount of draw Yuki can do with the amount of attack cards she has. The ideal setup is that Yuki should always have more attack cards than the total amount of draw she can do within a single turn. For example, by having 2 Prepare to Subdue, Yuki has the ability to draw 4 attack cards. This means that by having 3 Iceberg Cleaves and 1 Flash Slash, everything will equalize. Both basic attacks can just be drawn by other combatants. There's only one last thing to talk about, and that's Trickery Strike. Due to the draw power of Prepare to Subdue, you don't particularly need Trickery Strike to draw more of Yuki's cards, but rather, you'd want it to improve the consistency of Yuki's deck. The ideal pick would be the Epiphany that gives Trickery Strike both retain and retrieve passives. This allows Trickery Strike to stay in your hand, and would always be ready to use in case you need a card to activate its inspiration effect. This is particularly important for Prepare to Subdue, since you will lose both its ability to trigger Freezing Blade and the extra draw without its inspiration effect. However, if you're truly confident that you can just manipulate Yuki's cards in a way that you always have everything with Inspiration Effect, then the best Epiphany option would be the one that gives Trickery Strike an Inspiration Effect. Not only does it become a zero-cost card, it also hits a lot harder and can trigger Freezing Blade unlike the other options. Now that you know Yuki's best build, here are some tips and things you should avoid doing when building Yuki. Prepare to Subdue specifically states that it will draw Yuki's attack cards. By adding neutral attack cards, Yuki can draw them and remove the possibility of drawing her own cards with the Inspiration Effect. Only forbidden cards such as Portrait of Fury and Ecstasy of Violence are worth adding into Yuki's deck as attack cards. Yuki's Ego skill should be used when you have multiple Yuki attack cards on your hand and have a multi-card draw ability from an ally ready to use. Yuki's Ego skill will put her cards back on top of the draw pile and boost its damage. Then, her ally can just put back those cards into your hand, which leads into a high damage burst setup. The best Divine Epiphany Yuki can get is the AP bonus for Prepare to Subdue. Other options are Flash Slash and Freezing Blade, getting 1 cost reduction. There's also Freezing Blade with the permanent morale and resolve increase. With a normal build, you can get multiple aggressive mutants. With a forbidden card, you should prioritize getting at least 2 confiscations. For ego manifestations, Yuki's E1 is very important because based on calculations, the 20% damage decrease of Iceberg Cleave is multiplicative to the final damage output instead of just the base. This means you are losing a solid 20% total damage without Yuki's E1. E4 combined with E6 is very powerful since it will grant a total of 45% multiplicative damage increase. Although, it can also be somewhat of a bait if you know how the damage formula works. The TLDR version is that the multiplicative boost does not affect additive boost, it only affects the base modifier of an attack. Moving on, let's talk about Yuki's teammates. As mentioned in the beginning, Yuki likes to play with anyone who can draw her cards, whether it's through simple draw abilities or complex deck manipulation. For attackers with the ability to draw cards, there's Veronica and Beryl. In some extreme cases, players use Hugo and Renoa. For sustains, there's Nia and Cassius. You can even use both at the same time. Now that we have all the information we need, let's talk about running Yuki in Chaos. One of the most comfortable setup to use with Yuki is running her with Veronica and Mika. Especially with the current event Chaos where half of the enemies are weak to the passion element. You can also choose to ignore the need for a teammate with card drawing capabilities, and just settle for another attacker who has an element advantage on whichever Chaos you are running. For example, I've found success in using Yuki and Rin together. You just need to put in more effort at using both of them. A defender can also help instead of a second attacker or a deck manipulator, since as long as you can survive, you will eventually clear. Granted, you don't meet enemies that require a fast kill. I've already tried this with Magna and managed to get comfortable clears with Yuki. Overall, I would consider Yuki as a strong combatant that is highly specialized in dealing AoE damage. Currently, all the event content is focused towards single-target passion and void element combatants. Yuki is the exact opposite. She is neither passion or void, and she is most definitely not focused towards single-target damage. By using Yuki on both Lab Zero and Nebula Distortion, it will give the impression that she's very underwhelming. After all the odds are stacked against her. When the content finally favors her, like the current Dimensional Twilight, it suddenly looks like Yuki is extremely powerful, which is exactly the case. Yuki is actually really powerful, and this is much more prominent in Basin, not just because of her element advantage, but also because everyone's deck has been finalized, which pushes Yuki's performance to its utmost limits. People compared Yuki to Haru. Basically, comparing an AoE damage dealer to a single target-focused combatant. People overlook so many things within their comparison. Yuki doesn't even use a ton of AP to deal high amounts of damage. Next, they just simply forget the fact that Yuki's damage increases exponentially based on the amount of targets despite being an AoE specialist. Finally, they forget that Freezing Blade exists, a follow-up attack on the majority of Yuki's cards. Using level 8 potentials, Haru's Anchor Shot with the extra hit deals a total of 650% modifier. Using level 8 potentials, Yuki's Iceberg Cleave deals a total of 349% modifier. Haru's Anchor Shot is a single target attack and costs 2 AP. Yuki's Iceberg Cleave is AoE and costs 1 AP. With just 2 targets alone, Yuki is already outperforming Anchor Shot with only 1 AP used. We haven't even taken into account Freezing Blade yet. I will stop the comparison there since this is meant to be a guide, not a video about discussing Haru's weaknesses. I still think Haru is a very good combatant and has her own niche. Is Yuki actually bad at single target scenarios? Interestingly, I don't think this is the case at all. Again, the problem is that people are judging Yuki's performance on content that is not even favorable for her. Here's a clip showing Yuki doing mostly single target attacks for 1 action point. As you can see, you really cannot underestimate the amount of damage Yuki can get from Freezing Blade. Honestly, I think Yuki is just in the right place. Powerful but not broken. We don't really need another Mei Lin in this game. And that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you on the next one.